Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So the cool thing about all these things that I'm going to hear from you is I just kind of have a brief description, which is my favorite thing because I know none of the details. So I'm kind of excited about that aspect of it.
Yeah, I didn't want to go too in depth with it, so I thought, we'll just.
I love it. That's my favorite thing. So yeah, when you contacted me through Instagram and you're like, yeah, I got some weird stuff that has gone on, and I was like, yeah, you can send me a little list or whatever. And sometimes people go into full detail, they'll send paragraphs, and that's fine. That's how they work through the process, and that's okay. Those are I try to skim that because honest to God, I like to be surprised. So when you just literally sent me a short list, I was like, yay. Did you want your full name in this, or is just Chad good? How do you want to roll with this?
Just Chad is good.
Okay. Awesome. And something because we did end up contacting each other through email and Instagram, and something you mentioned in one of your emails, which I thought was interesting, was that you said that people that weren't there laughed at these events.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I've had a lot of people that I've told the stories to, because I don't tell a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that I do tell, some of them will kind of laugh about it. And I get it, lots of skeptics, but yeah, that's a very common reaction.
Yeah. And you're probably at this point not surprised about that reaction, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. We're all pretty used to that by now, so that's all right. When they have those experiences and they almost poop their pants or whatever the situation is, then they won't be so skeptical.
Well, that's pretty much it. I've always been a believer in things that, are paranormal. Even in the beginning, it was just because I wanted to, have the possibility that something even existed. But once you start really having some experiences, it gets a little bit more real for you. I mean, you don't really laugh at anyone anymore.
No, exactly. And I think that a lot of people, they do or are still explaining it away in their head, so they still might laugh at a story, but even though deep down they're like, well, I mean, I'm laughing, but I have kind of my own weird thing. It might be just one thing, but a lot of times that's all it takes.
Well, that's what, I had never told any of these stories to my wife, at least not in detail. And I ended up, telling her one little one, and she kind of laughed and was teasing me about it. And then all of a sudden today, she tells me about a weird experience that she had one time. I'm
no
like,
way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, see? I'm like, come on now. You can't make fun of me. Like, you've had stuff too.
It's funny, though, because a lot of times I really do think that the connection sometimes is not made, or the word paranormal or an oddity or supernatural or whatever it might be. They are not making that real connection. They haven't really accepted it yet. It's really, truly, I think, a state of denial for a lot of people because, let's face it, especially if it's something in your own home, and I get this, I say it all the time, you don't want that kind of stuff in your own home, so it's much easier just to be like, okay, well, that was weird, on to the next thing, and you kind of just put it out of your mind.
Right. No, that's 100% right. That's most people want to be in denial about, anything. It just has to be a weird occurrence, nothing behind it.
Yeah, I always bring this up. Ian Gibbs came on with me, and he said that he and his wife, they lived in this super haunted house. Forgive me, I forget where it was in Canada. And something extremely strange happened to both of them. But I was like, okay, so what does a conversation look like after that? He goes, you know what? It never came up again. We never, ever talked about it. And it was because of the fact, he goes, once you say it out loud, it's a big form of acceptance that it was real. So anyway, yeah.
Right. All of a sudden, it's something.
Well, that's pretty cool, though, that your wife finally said, hey, I had something kind of weird actually, Chad, happen.
I know, right? And it took me by surprise, too. I'm like,
very cool. High five on that.
Before.
Wow.
Right?
Well, that was fortuitous, considering that we're talking today. And again, thank you for getting in contact with me.
Of course.
All right, so I've got the little list here, and if we could, I mean, you could start wherever you want, but I've got the list kind of written down the way that you wrote it. You kind of mentioned the Salem Witch Trials area first out of the gate, so I don't know if you wanted to start there or one of the other ones.
So, well, for me, it's easy to start in chronological order. But the Salem Witch Trials were definitely something, that area. I was living in New York. And my best friend is from Vermont. So there was a lot of experiences out there. But the thing that really started me off, where I knew that there was oddities, was actually when I was really young. I was only about 7 years old. I was at my uncle's house, and he lives down south in Texas, almost to Louisiana. You know where you've probably heard of the Big Thicket, the National Forest, the preserve. So his land backs up to that. So, it was real late at night, and we were all going back in, and I actually went in to go in on their back door, their screened-in porch, and it was locked. And I'm a kid; it's dark in the middle of nowhere in Texas, and so I kind of started getting a little bit panicky, and I just had this weird feeling come over me. And I was trying to get in, and I couldn't. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make a run for it and get to the front door. And the moment I turned around, I had that weird feeling. I turned around, there was actually a coyote sitting there, just staring at me. Now, this was the first of kind of mini issues, or not issues, but kind of run-ins with what I had told you was kind of like a Wendigo, right?
Right.
I don't even know if that's the best way to describe it, but it was really strange when I was sitting there, I was staring at it, and it had these glowing red eyes, and it just kind of caught me by surprise. And it was very strange because it was almost like a calm came over me. And this is what my wife was kind of laughing about. I said, because when I was staring at the coyote, all of a sudden in my head, a voice said, "Follow me." And I'm like, that's really strange, didn't know what to make of it. And at that point in time, I literally just was scared as all get out and just ran to the front door. So went to the front door, went inside, never told anybody about it. So that was the first time
Yeah, and you were only 7, and you're going through, so the first feeling was fear. That's what made you turn around, and you're like, I'm out of here. The coyote's sitting there. Then it goes to calm, and then back to fear again, right?
Yes, definitely back to fear. And you're sitting here at a young age going, okay, I know I heard a voice in my head, and it wasn't me talking to me. And you're trying to piece it together, but you're so young, and I vividly remember that.
Right.
But I couldn't make heads or tails of it, and I had no idea about anything other than watching Harry and the Hendersons. That's, boy, got me started with Bigfoot.
So you were walking away from the house, and then when you turned around, the coyote was between you and the house then, or it was further out towards the bush?
So actually, when I turned around, because he's got about 5 acres, and about 3 acres of it is just open field, and we used to play football on it. And it was one of those things where I was standing on top of some stairs at the door entryway to the screened-in porch, and I couldn't get in. And I had that feeling of just fear kind of wash over me. And to me, the fear was more like, hey, it's dark, I'm 7, and I can't get in the house. then when I turned around to go down the stairs, that's when I saw this coyote.
Mm.
And that's when all of a sudden I got just calm. You know, everything was real calm. I didn't have any more fear. Then I heard those words in my head. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that so strange, though, that the feeling of calm would come at the same time as this voice trying to get you to do something that you probably shouldn't have done, and thank God you didn't? Don't you wonder, though, what would have happened if you would have gone with it?
I always wonder what would have happened if I'd gone with it. But that was my introduction to just kind of knowing that there was something else, you know, and that's all it was at the time.
Did you, so you turned and you went back in the house. Do you know if you left first, or was the coyote still sitting there?
It was still sitting there. Yeah, I left first. So I kind of just, at the point, I heard that in my mind, and from there I bolted, because right after that happened, the fear washed back over me. And so I just ran around the side of the house and went up to the front door and went in. And like I said, I didn't tell anybody.
Right. Well, that's tough, because, you know, what do you say? And then everyone's going to go, oh, you got such a creative imagination, Chad. One last question about that story. Do you feel like the glowing red eyes was some sort of an eye shine, or do you feel like it was like really, really glowing?
Well, when I think back on it, and that's not the only experience that I had with that exact same type of encounter, you know, it was pitch black. There's no lights out there. It's Southeast Texas. So to me, the glowing was just literally coming from its eyes. Now, you know, there's security lights and things like that, but nothing was on. So as far as I could tell, it was just the eyes.
Was it abnormally large or strange looking when you look back on it?
It was each time, because that was not the only time that I've had a run-in like that.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that I saw it, especially when I got older, when I was a kid, it was like that was a, you know, I thought it was like a German Shepherd.
Right.
You know, at first, when you first saw it. So, I mean, it's larger.
That's pretty big,
you know,
for a coyote.
Like, yeah, coyotes are, you know, 40 or 50 pounds on the big side. And this thing looked like it would have been closer to, you know, 100 pounds. But like I said, at first I thought it was a German Shepherd. So it was very large for what it was, but it was very clearly a coyote, you know, and there's no wolves or anything in Texas, really. You don't see them anymore. So it was definitely out of the ordinary.
Yeah, the big thicket's got all kinds of stuff out there. I mean, they've certainly got their fair share of Bigfoot reports and all of that. So that is very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
See, that wasn't in your list. That's very cool. I like that, because like you said, the other one from San Diego, you did put in the list. So now we've got this parallel going on here. That's so interesting, though, I've heard that so many times with this kind of, you know, and people do laugh at stuff like that. Oh, mental telepathy with the creature, whatever. But I hear that a lot with across all kinds of encounter stories, though. So I don't know.
Right. Absolutely.
And this feeling of either fear or calm, and you're like, yes, I do want to walk into the pitch black water with you. You know, the siren is calling my name. You're like, no, don't go.
Exactly.
Like, you know it's wrong. You know it's not a normal thing to do, but oh. Goodness.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What's the next thing that happens for you? So that was when you were 7, right?
That's when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
So I actually, so this is still before the Salem Witch Trial, when I lived out in that area. So I actually encountered what I considered to be the same coyote another time in San Diego. And at the time, I was about 19 years old. I had actually just moved back. I had graduated high school, and I moved to Texas, lived with my cousin, who actually is neighbors with my uncle. Never saw anything out there again. But when I moved back to California, I was sitting there, and my parents had 3 acres, or had, I should say, 3 acres. Mm-hmm. And they had this little cabin on the property. So when I moved back, I actually moved into the cabin. Just easier to come and go. My dad didn't want me waking him up. 19-year-old kid coming home at 1 a.m.
So this is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I'm used to the San Diego that's very urban and all of that. So if you kind of get out into the more outside of actual, what I think of as San Diego, people
Mhm.
have property and your neighbors maybe aren't quite as right next to you then.
Right. In the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was actually minimum 2 acres per
Oh,
lot.
that's cool.
So, no neighbor was more than, or closer, I should say, than an acre.
I bet
most.
those lots are worth a pretty penny now out in that area, huh?
Well, Dad sold his, and he had a lot of fun when he went to the bank. That's all I know.
Yeah, that is a very, very smart investment as far as, I know San Diego's a big hotspot. Everybody wants to be out there. I love San Diego. So, okay, I'm sorry. Go on with your story.
That's quite all right. It's a beautiful area, I know. So I was sitting there, and I was just watching TV in my room. Back then it was still the tube TVs. That was the coolest thing in the world. And I heard this like scratching on the roof of the cabin. And around the cabin was a bunch of pine trees. So at first I kind of thought, okay, it's just branches from the pine tree, whatever. And then it kept going, and it got louder and louder, and then it was almost like something was beating on the roof. And then it just stopped. I'm like, this is so weird. And I mean, this is, after midnight. So it's not like, it's 8 o'clock or anything like that. It's after midnight. And so I walked outside, just kind of trying to figure out what was going on. I want to make sure that a tree's not falling in on my roof. So I walk outside, and there's nothing. I don't see anything. And I'm looking. So from the cabin, there's a set of stairs that goes up to our driveway. And there's a garage and another garage. It's like a storage unit, a little basketball court. And I'm staring out at that, which faces one of our neighbors' properties. And all of a sudden, there's this huge, just whoosh of air. And something goes right over my head. Scares the living crap out of me. It is the biggest owl I've ever seen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, not that I've seen a lot of them, right? But just the biggest owl I've ever seen. And it goes and it flies towards my neighbor's house, which there's a big outcropping of rocks that goes up to his house and it flattens out. And I could see the owl land. And I saw it turn and look at me, and it had those same red eyes. And the next thing I knew, it was that same coyote in my head, at least, that I had seen so many years earlier, came walking down the rock outcropping.
What?
Yes. And it just sat down by our basketball goal. And so at that point, it wasn't like a full court thing. It was just a basketball goal in the driveway. It was probably like a half court size of a basketball court. And so I'm standing on my stairs from there to a half court basketball, just staring at this huge coyote. And same thing, eyes going red. And the same thing happens where I have a voice in my head, basically saying, follow me, come with me.
Mm.
And at the time, I'm just sitting there going, what is this? And, I grew up doing a lot of sports, so I'm not a small guy. My favorite thing that I ever did was boxing and wrestling. So I tend to be a little bit more out there. So I like to explore things. So I started walking up to it. And as I started walking towards it, it was like, almost like I want to call it an aura around it. It started shimmering. And the moment that I saw that, it kind of snapped me out of it. Curiosity went away. And again, I was real calm. Like, I didn't feel fear, nothing along those lines. But when that started happening, it just, like I said, it snapped me out of it. I'm like, this is not natural.
Right.
Not at all. So I ran back into my cabin and shut the door, locked it, grabbed my shotgun, and just kind of sat there on my bed. Just waited. And nothing ever happened. Nothing ever came of it. But it was the exact same thing it said to me as it did when I was 7. And I had almost forgotten about it until this happened. Like, I didn't really recall the original memory until this encounter. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
So that was the second time.
How close do you think you got to that thing?
I was within, I would say, probably 15 to 20 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is awful close.
Yeah.
The shimmering. So it was just shimmering around it, or the actual coyote seemed to be, shimmering itself, like its actual physical body.
So when I told you I had the Wendigo type of experience, this is why I call it that, because I'm not really sure what to categorize it as, but I knew about the Wendigo and, the Native American folklore and all that stuff, which, by the way, this street that I grew up on was Navaja. It was, in the whole Indian area, Indian name in Southern California.
Right.
So the reason I called it a Wendigo is because when I walked up to it, or when I was walking towards it, it was literally, the whole thing was kind of shimmering, almost like heat waves. Like when you see heat waves on the road, like, in Vegas, like your areas, and out in the desert where I used to go, you'd see those heat waves, where it was kind of the wavy, distorted coming off the pavement. That's what it looked like. Almost like, I don't know, the best way I can describe it is almost like it was kind of changing to something.
Was the owl still there, or the owl had either disappeared or flown off, and then the coyote shows up?
The owl was completely gone. In fact, the way that it looked from my vantage point, which the way it was is the elevation is probably about, 20 or 30 feet for the rock outcropping. But it literally looked like the owl had morphed into a coyote, because I saw the owl land, I saw the eyes, and then as it started moving, and when it actually came into any type of light, basically moonlight, it was a coyote. It was no longer an owl. But I could never discern a time frame where it stopped being an owl and started being a coyote. It was just all of a sudden it was changed.
Of course, the question is, what is it really, right? I mean,
right.
What's its actual form?
So that's why I call it, a Wendigo experience, because I don't know that that's what it is, but, that's the shape shifting, the form shifting. That's what it reminds me of.
But you didn't have the range of emotions with this run-in with it, right?
No, not at all. But like I said, by that time, and I'd been hunting for years and all kinds of stuff. And it was just more of when the owl went over me, it scared the crap out of me. I will definitely say that. But when I saw everything, it didn't really affect me. I felt the calm, I guess I would say when I saw that it was kind of like a shimmering, changing, there was definitely a fear that went with that, but it was like a fear of, this is definitely not, the coyote.
Just like time to go. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I wonder if it's because you're simply older and, like you said, you've had all of these experiences and, you were maybe a little bit more used to it, or if you or all of us are just more pure and we don't realize it, but maybe we're more open to these things when we're an age of, like, say, 7 when it first happened. Maybe it could get in easier. I don't know. It's just conjecture. I don't know, but.
Well, and who knows? By that time, when I was in high school, there was always, the rumors of the haunted houses way out in the country. And, my friends and I would go out there and we would explore, and little stuff would happen, stuff would fall over, whatever it was. But, by that time, obviously I was more curious, like I want to know about it at that point.
But
so it could be.
And I haven't heard the rest of your encounters, but so far these are 2 really striking, interesting stories. So, but the most interesting things is, because a lot of people will go, well, it's probably tied to the land and da-da-da, but we're in 2 different states now, years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So the common denominator is you.
Right.
So, have you thought, and I completely understand if you've never discussed this with your family or anything, but, would there be anything in your family's past that could have a tie-in with anything like this at all?
And that's one of the weird things is I honestly have no idea. you know. The only thing, because my family didn't talk a lot about, kind of our history and things like that. I didn't know until I was older that even my last name, it's not actually my inherited last name. It just came about because my actual, my great grandmother was pregnant with my grandfather, and at the time her husband died, and she got remarried while she was pregnant. So they don't talk about a lot of stuff. I found out through Ancestry.
Wow.
Not to put a plug in or anything.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I do know is that one part of my family, they come from, they're Cajun. They come from Louisiana French. A lot of them from that, kind of Baton Rouge out in the Bayou area. And, there's all kinds of stuff out there,
right.
From whatever they talk about, black magic to hauntings and everything else. And the other side of my family is the majority of them, they're from Spain. So, I don't know if that plays any part in it, but I do know that one side of the family, at least, they came in from an area where, stuff is known to happen. You got the Rougarou, you got all kinds of stuff out there. And, but I don't know. It's weird. And I was kind of wondering if that would be something that you would bring up, because it's the same experience, but like you said, we're not talking same area, right. 2 different states.
I've already got it figured out. You have a voodoo curse on you. It's really easy.
Clearly.
It's passed down.
Clearly. I don't know why I didn't come up with that already.
No, I just that it's so cool, those 2 stories. They're each unique in their own way. The second one's got this owl, which of course, owls are so incredible. And did you listen to Mike Cleellan's interview? And I had him on Midnight in the Desert as well with me. But anyhow, his 2 books, are all about owls and synchronicities and them being messengers. And, they mean more in a lot of ways to a lot of people. It might be something for you to read, just to see, if any of those stories kind of resonate with you. I've talked to so many people, and my memory is really horrible. I wish it was better, but I'm pretty sure there's probably some similar stories in there. And I know that now that I've said this out loud, once it airs, people are going to be emailing me that know more about Mike's work than I do and have a better memory of that. So yeah, if you guys know of coyotes tying in, red glowing eyes, the owls being in there, please get a hold of me so I can relay that to Chad. And that can at least be another tendril to look at least.
Yeah, I would love to know. Here is one thing too, actually thinking about past and families. We always joked about that the only Native American that we could have had was, in our ancestry, was the one that killed, my great-great-great-grandfather. But we actually did an ancestry test. We did find out that we were part Native American. So, I don't know if that plays any part into any of this.
Was that was there like I know I don't want to pry, you don't have to tell me, but was there a certain percentage, Spain, and then the southern aspect, and then the Native American? Do they break it down like that, or how do they do it?
Yeah, they do. They break everything down, and so we came from, and I can't remember at this point, but it's an area of kind of the area of Spain where like 34% of the DNA was reflecting that. Obviously, I'm as white as it gets, so there's definitely some English in there.
Yeah.
The Nordic, there was a lot of Nordic. And it was about 8% was Native American. Now, it doesn't say the tribe or anything like that, but clearly at one point we do have, some type of Native American ancestry. Assuming that those things are accurate. Who knows?
So it could just be your ancestor. They want you to follow them so they can teach you the old ways and the secrets of, just...
Who knows?
The secrets of life and... I don't know.
It would be cool.
Except for the feeling of fear. Maybe that's just a byproduct and they couldn't control that. That's a bummer. You're like, that didn't work out when I was a kid. ancestor, if that was your intention, you scared the crap out of me more than you made me feel comfortable. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, but no, so I don't know if that played into it at all. But, I'd always love more information on it because that's something that's always been with me since, especially since the second experience. And there is a third one. But before I even got to that one, I did end up moving to New York. And that's where all the stuff with the Salem Witch Trials happened.
Awesome. Let's hear it.
So when I went out to New York, I ended up meeting a guy that basically became my best friend, is to this day. I won't say his name, but he was from Vermont, Bennington, Vermont, which is only about 30 minutes from where the Salem Witch Trials took place. And when I went out there, obviously I'd had some encounters, of my own, and I was already very curious about things. And I told him, I said, well, have you ever heard of anything that goes on? And he goes, well, yeah, there's been, hauntings at this house and hauntings at that house. And, this goes on at the Bennington College and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right, well, I'd like to see that. So he goes, okay, cool. So we get up the next day and we actually go to a little birthday party, and we're looking for his little nephew, Joshua. And this was completely out of the blue. Like, this is nothing that he goes, hey, this house is haunted. We're going to run into something. No, nothing. Everyone's looking for his little nephew, Joshua, and they're on a couple acres. So they're like, he's either out playing in the house or whatever. The kid's probably about 5 or 6 years old. And so I walk into the house and I'm like, hey, buddy, in here? And I walk upstairs and I go into a bedroom and he's sitting on the edge of the bed and he's crying. And I don't really know this kid. I mean, I met him a couple days prior, but it's just a little kid. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to him, see how he's doing. I'm like, hey, buddy, you okay? And I go to put my arm around him and literally my arm goes right through him.
Oh my God.
Like he's not even there. And right away, it's like your heart just drops and you're like, oh, what's going on? The next thing I know, the closet door burst open and it sounds like an absolute, just like a locomotive coming through the room. And just the loudest sound you've ever heard. The house starts shaking, everything. I hightail it out of the room and I go downstairs, and it wasn't just me. Everybody that was outside was like, the whole house was shaking.
Oh, wow.
What happened? Yeah, and I'm telling them, this is what happened. I'm like, I thought I had him. He was on the edge of the bed. I went to get my hug, and then my arm goes through him. Well, it actually turns out he was at the neighbor's house playing with their kid the whole time. So he comes back over 15 minutes later. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm hooked. I'm like, you got me. Obviously, there's some stuff here.
Yeah.
So my buddy starts telling me about this house that's, almost to where the Salem Witch Trials started. And he goes, they say that you can't run through the backyard. You'll stop halfway through. And, I'm 20, this is right after everything happened that we talked about just before. And I'm like, well, we clearly have to go check this out. There's no way we're not.
We got to try this.
We have to try it. So we go, group of us, there's, 5 of us. And we go and the house is actually, it's like a bed and breakfast is what it is now. So, it's not like it's just a private residence. Well, I guess technically it's still a private residence, but we're like, okay, we're going to hop the fence in the back and we're going to go around and we're going to run across it. So a couple of people are sitting up on the patio, and I'm, of course, the one that says, I'm going to run across this yard. So I go to bolt across the yard. At this time, I'm 2 years removed from being a high school track star. So I'm going as fast as I can. I hit the middle of the yard, and it literally felt like I had hit Jell-O. And I couldn't move. Couldn't go through it.
What the hell?
It was done. Yeah. Backed out of it. Tried again. Couldn't pass through it.
What? So when you say it was like hitting Jell-O, you didn't obviously come to an immediate stop. You just kind of like stuck into something. I mean, and you had to pull yourself out of it.
It was as if my body just almost like what I would imagine it would be like hitting cement,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or something that has like a wet cement or something that has.
So it had some give, but not much. Yeah.
Right. It gives, but you all of a sudden, like whatever you're doing, you're done. Like you're not moving any farther. That's exactly what it was. And so then one of the guys that was there, he started laughing. And the next thing we know, he's sitting on just like a regular porch, you know, the railing, you know, it's just like the railing of a porch. He's sitting there laughing, you know, because he's just expected it to happen. And he gets thrown off of the porch. Physically. I mean, this is a 180-pound guy. Just flies off of the railing that he's sitting on. Probably a good 10 feet into the yard.
What did everybody do at that point? I mean, he's probably not laughing anymore, but is everybody going, you know?
Yeah, everyone was basically saying that. You know, I'm sitting here staring at him, and I'm looking at the middle of the field, or not the field, but the yard. I mean, it was a big backyard, but it wasn't a field. But I'm looking at the middle of the yard because you can't see anything. And I'm just blown away because you're looking literally from where I'm at to the other side of the yard and looking at the fence, and you can't see anything in between. But if you try and run through it or, you know, move through it, it stops you. It just grabs you.
What if,
did
you try to just, you know, if you go to the point where you couldn't run through it, if you just step back, and then what if you just put your hand up there? Could you still feel that, you know, the gelatinous, whatever we want to call it, mass that you couldn't run through? Could you feel it?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
I've never heard of such a thing.
It was the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced. And I put my hands on, you know, kind of walked up to it. And when I felt the pushback on it, I put my hands on it and I pushed as if I was doing a bench press. And literally it was just, it felt like the weight of the world was pushing back on my hands. Like you couldn't get through it. So
you could basically do, you know, if you're teaching someone how to do push-ups and they can't really do them, they do them against the wall, you know? You just kind of lean into it. So you could do that.
It would be like doing that against a wall of like rubber, where your hands would sink in, but you could literally push off again.
But it would hold your body weight. And you were a big guy.
It would hold.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I was still in great shape at about 230 pounds.
Right.
You know?
You're like, I was in football and all this other stuff. What in the world is that? So was there a rumor that there was actually a spot that you could get through it, or it was just known that you just couldn't get through this wall?
It was known that it was only after nighttime. So it was only after nightfall. Wow. It was just known that if you tried to run through the backyard, like just, you know, in that way, kind of like, I guess you would say horizontally, you were not going to make it through.
So let me ask you, because considering what this is in proximity to, what's the tie in there, if any?
Well, in this area where they built in, you know, it's within about, I want to say probably 5 to 10 minutes driving distance of the college, which the college is actually where there's actually the actual like sacrificial grounds for the Salem Witch Trials. Like they have it on the college grounds, and all through those areas, it's just kind of known that there was a lot of witchcraft. There was a lot of murders that took place, and there was just a lot of, I guess, I don't know, the best way I could describe it would be black magic, you know, that went through those entire areas. So the town was known for little things like this. So this was just kind of nothing specific. It was just that this house was known for this. Wow. And it was in this region, you know, close to where the Salem Witch Trials had gone on. And you assume, of course, that, you know, back in the day, I'm sure something happened there.
Well, yeah, you have the phantom child too. I mean, we can't. I mean, the wall is blowing my mind right now, but we can't forget about the kid that you had just put your arm through upstairs. I mean, was there any description of, did you say here's the kid that I saw, and then someone goes, oh yeah, that's so and so. He's seen all the time. Like, is there a backstory on that kid?
No, not at all. That's what's so weird about it. Because it looked like the kid that we're looking for Joshua. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What the hell is that?
He was literally wearing, that's what I'm saying.
Wait,
that's what's so crazy about it.
You're saying he was even wearing the same thing? That is so cool. Same
clothes, same haircut, same everything.
Do you think there's a chance that the house is there's so much, for lack of a better term, power around the house, whatever you want to say, that maybe at one point the kid was sitting up there on the bed and it's some kind of an imprint or a replay of him doing that activity?
Well, I mean, for me, nothing is off limits after having that happen,
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when a closet door flies open and all of a sudden the house starts shaking, and what's funny about it is I know I'm not the only one. Like, if I was the only one, I'm sitting here going, okay, clearly I had too much to drink that day.
Well, that's why it's like, so cool that I think you're like kind of going, thank God everybody else heard this amazing noise and the house is shaking, and you're probably going outside going, please God, tell me everybody heard that or is hearing this, right?
Exactly. I mean, because isn't that kind of the biggest thing? Whenever you run into something weird, you're always kind of hoping, if there are other people around, you're like, that happened, right? You saw that.
Now, does this still go on to this day at this house? I've never heard of this, ever.
So the last update that I ever heard was quite a while ago, but the people that lived there, the mom just has a weird disease that no one can figure out. It's literally her bones are disintegrating.
Oh, geez.
Doctors don't know what it is. They can't diagnose it. But,
really?
She literally has this, her skeleton is literally disintegrating. They will go in there and, she'll bring groceries in. And then, of course, this is all secondhand. This is what I'm being told.
Right.
She'll bring groceries in. She'll put them all up in the cupboards. She'll go out to the car, come back, and they're literally all over the counter.
Wow.
So, all the things that I've heard about it is that there is still things going on at that house.
And this is a bed and breakfast still to this day, or is it back to being a private, like super private residence?
No, this is actually still, as far as I know, it's a bed and breakfast.
Now, if you don't want to say the name of it, that's cool, but off the air, I would love to know the name of that. I mean, I'm not jet set or made of money or anything, but one of these days, if I get out that way, I'd love to go out there.
So this is in complete honesty, I don't actually remember the name of it. But that being said,
damn you, Chad! No, I'm just kidding.
I'm so sorry. But I will try and find out what it is, because my friend, he still lives out there. And if he remembers the name of it, I will send it on to you.
That would be so amazing. My mind is blown with the wall in the back, and that, I mean, I've heard things kind of similar, but not quite like that. That is so damn cool. But what is it? How did it get there? Like, are there witches strong enough? And why would they put it there? Like, are they doing weird shit in the woods, in the back of the house? So, well, we need a wall up here. And they're like, whatever the spell was that they had to put that up. I mean, what in the hell's going on there?
Right. Well, I mean, and you imagine it wasn't very far from where, like I was saying, the sacrificial, areas were. So who knows? I mean, maybe before that house was ever built, there was something on that side. Because that whole area was hugely just thick woods, It was nuts. It was absolutely crazy.
And as you said, there's all kinds of wonky stuff going on. You got murders, and you got the witchcraft, and there's all kinds of stuff going down.
Tons of stuff.
I mean, the woods.
Who knows?
The woods is where people go to do a lot of bad stuff sometimes. So let's just be honest about that. But damn, that's a cool story, Chad. If you talk to your friend, of course, it's no rush or anything. But golly, I'd like to learn the name of that place.
I'll ask him, because, like I said, he actually he moved to San Diego. Introduced him to his wife, so
Oh, well, he owes you.
Me.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So he has to tell me.
High five on that.
They moved back out there. Yeah, right. They moved back out there, so he's been there for probably about 7-8 years now. So I'm sure he remembers the name of it.
The woods were calling him, right?
The woods were calling him. That's exactly right.
Come home.
They're calling me too, but unfortunately, my wife is definitely afraid of anything that's too wooded.
Hey, smart lady. So, there's a lot of crazy, wonky shit in the woods that sometimes it'll get you. It'll get you.
It definitely will.
You never know. Well, do we have time for the at least one of the Austin, Texas stories, or is there one? But whatever you want to do next, you go for it. We have time for one more.
Well, I'll tell you what, just to sum it up, there was one more out there where the Salem Witch Trials were. The college is very haunted as well. So I went from that. I ended up going back to California. Then I went to Austin. And, what happened in Austin was kind of weird in the sense of, at the time, I was a carpet cleaner. And I would go to these houses that this one company had, that they were rentals and they were for special education folk.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with this one house, the first one I went to, and everyone was gone, and I went back to check all the rooms, make sure the doors were locked. No one could get into it, and I walked in and the TV was on, but the TV hadn't been on when we left, so that's kind of weird. So I turned it off. Go back, out to our little carpet cleaning truck, and I go and I grab the receipt, bring it back in. The TV's on again. I'm like, well, that's unnerving, to say the least. So I went, I looked around the house, made sure no one was in there, because I don't know what's going on. I didn't make sure no one's messing with me. And there was no one in there. So I ended up leaving. As we drove past, we looked through the living room, saw that the TV had turned back on. And, for me, it was weird, but nothing too crazy. Well, after that, we ended up, about 3 days later, we went and did a job that was over where the old airport in Austin was. Now, we pulled up to the area, and it was kind of like a closed-in garage, right? It was full of everything that you would imagine came from the Texas Chainsaw House.
Oh, boy.
Right.
Of course.
Of course. I mean, what else would you expect, right? So, I mean, we're talking like dolls with literally chainsaw blades wrapped around their heads, hanging from ceilings.
Oh, God.
Tourniquets around dolls, dolls with their heads gone, and like what we assumed at the time was fake blood.
Oh.
Just weird stuff. Yeah, it was like, the old munitions boxes, full of needles and all kinds of stuff, like the old stuff you see from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It was just crazy. And so we're going in, and it's a buddy of mine, and we're just kind of joking around and everything. And, we walk in and we see carpet. It's tan carpet. It's called Berber. And it's got all these red spots all over it. And the first thing I joke about is I'm like, well, after everything we saw in there, I'm like, watch, this is blood. So we start cleaning, not doing anything. Next thing we know, we put the blood remover on it, which is a protein base, and it comes out. I'm like, okay, well, that's odd. I'm like, there's blood everywhere. I'm like, that's really odd. And this house is empty too. Like, I didn't say that part. Everything is empty. There's no furniture, no nothing. Right? Mm-hmm. They just sent us there to clean the carpet and whatever, do the make ready for everything. So I'm joking around still, because that's just kind of what I do. I make light of everything. And I go, well, the next thing we're going to find a trap door when we clean the closet.
Oh, shit.
So I go to actually clean the closet, and I drop our little carpet cleaning wand on there, and I hear like an open thud. I'm like, come on, you got to be kidding me. So I go and I lift everything up. Trap door underneath. little like door, like little dead serious, right? I'm like, all right, this just starting to feel a little bit weird. So I told my buddy, I was like, we just need to get this done, like 100%, just done deal, just go. So we clean everything, we do the living room, we do all this stuff. I throw the receipt in there, and I'm like, I'm gone. So we pull the van out, we're sitting on the street, and I just happened to look up because he was driving, and I looked through the window, and there's a black, faceless, just figure just sitting there in the kitchen window that's looking out at us. And I just told him, I said, are you seeing this? And he looks over, and this is the guy, he's like me, all kinds of possibilities. And I had never seen anyone drive a carpet cleaning truck so quick.
Wow, he saw it too. Oh, geez.
He saw it too. And it was strange because it was the same exact company's houses that we'd been going to and having other weird experiences with them. And all of a sudden we're at this one, and it's like, I don't really know what that one was, but it
what do you think the chances are that house has tenants that stay longer than a few months?
I'm thinking that it's really good.
Yeah, I
am thinking that there's definitely some people that hang out in that house.
How much blood are we talking about on the carpet? How many spots, and was it a substantial amount at each spot?
So the best way I could describe it was in the areas where it literally looked like, are you familiar with Big Red soda?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was almost like someone had a cup of Big Red soda and had just tripped and fallen, and or red wine, whatever you want to use, and it just shot all over the floor. So, I mean, it was huge amounts.
It's a bad wound, basically, at each spot. Not a good wound. I know. No little paper cut. Yeah. Oh,
no, definitely nothing along those lines. But the fact that we had gone through, we walked around, and we knew for a fact that no one was in that house. And it's the creepiest thing that I've ever seen compared to anything, because it's just so hard to describe, just a black, lifeless human shape.
Did you have any desire to stick your head down in the trapdoor to see what was in there?
God, no.
I already knew your answer. That's why I was laughing, but I had to ask.
Yeah, no.
That's a big bag of nope.
The only desire I had at that point was to get the hell out of there. That was the only thing I wanted to do.
You're like, hey, give me your flashlight. I got to check something out. You're like, nope, not doing it.
Oh yeah, no, God. There was no checking it out. I don't. When I think that there's a murder scene that could have been caused by something out of this world, I don't really feel like sticking around.
Or maybe, there's multiple spots of blood because the person that murdered the other 2 or 3 actually died in the fight, and now you have this evil person that died there, and now they're attacked. See, I just come up with these fantastical narratives. But, I mean, it is strange because a black, faceless figure, you don't add a connotation of positivity and light to that. And, of course, being murdered doesn't always have a nice positive connotation to it either. But
no, not at all.
Something like that, or the people that see these black shadow figures in their house or the Hat Man, that's not cool, man. Like, nobody thinks that's positive and happy. It's not cool. So, I mean, that's a hell of a story. Goodness me, you see some stuff, huh?
Oh, and that's not even the tip of it.
Again, the good thing is, for this one again, you had somebody else to witness it with you. So.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about a lot of them, is there was other people there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the first time that I've ever seen, just a black entity. I've had dreams and all kinds of stuff that other people had the exact same dreams as I did. So there's always more to talk about.
Tell me, and I actually think that you should come back on with me because it sounds like you have a lot more stories. But do you have one more that's kind of like, really going to creep me and the listeners out pretty damn good? Well, I mean, I could tell you the one about kind of the black entity that I was just talking about.
I talked plenty about the coyote. I definitely ran into that one a couple more times. But
wait. You saw the coyote again? A couple more times?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, so tell me about let's go to the very most recent time that you saw the coyote. Can you tell that one?
Yes, I can tell that one.
Awesome.
I'll do that. We'll save the rest for another time.
Yeah, I promise. I will have you back on, but because we've already told two of them, I would like to see what, this, the very most recent one sounds like for you.
Okay, so this is the most recent one, and it was quite a while ago. So I had lived in Austin, and we actually had our first kid. My son was born, and so we decided that we were either going to move to Southeast Texas or California. Well, we decided to go back to California. Now, at the time, we obviously didn't have a place to live, and so we moved in at my parents' house, the same place that I had been before. She was not okay with staying in the cabin because there actually was not a restroom. Now, for a guy, not too big of a deal.
Right.
But for a lady, not necessarily what they want. So we did actually live in the house and all that stuff. And my wife always made the comment. She's like, this house has the creepiest feel to it. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? It's just crazy. So at the time, I had a dog who was a Staffordshire Terrier, which is basically a big pit bull.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Deegan. He weighed about 100 pounds.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And at the house where we were, there was always coyotes, packs of coyotes. The dog I grew up with, she was a German Rottweiler named Oopsie. She used to just chase coyotes all over the place, packs of coyotes. Well, she was almost 200 pounds, so no one cared if she chased coyotes. Well,
Right.
even being close to maybe 100 pounds, whenever it came to coyotes, I was a little bit leery because they run in packs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want them to get hurt. Well, one night we had come home with the family, and I let him out of the garage where we had him staying at the time, and he went right over to that rock outcropping that I had talked about before, that the coyote came down. Well, his hackles went up, and he started going crazy, and he bolted. And right when I saw him bolt towards that rock outcropping, I saw a ton of coyotes, like a whole pack of coyotes, start running around. My first inclination is, crap, they're going to corner my dog and kill him, So me being the genius that I am, I decided that I'm going to run after him. So I go bolting up the rock outcropping, and I'm on my neighbor's property. And it's really strange the way you have to imagine it. Like, he had a road, like a dirt road that goes up to the top of his property where there is a solar panel for his pool, and it's like a big turnaround. So I go running up there, and I'm bolting up there. And the moment that I get up to that area where the turnaround is, Deegan is sitting there, and he's just tackles up, just staring. And I literally start looking around the turnaround, and it's coyotes all the way around it, like encircling him. And so I'm calling him. I'm like, come here, boy, come here. He won't do anything. Next thing I know, that same coyote, I just see the eyes coming up over the mound, because on the back side of that turnaround was just a hill. All of a sudden it comes up over the hill. I see the eyes. The moment that this coyote comes over, my dog just turns into a baby. Wants nothing to do with it. Whimpering, tail between its legs, turns around and goes flying past me.
Oh, wow.
So my first thought is, great, thanks for protecting me. My second thought is,
he gone.
Is great. He's gone. He is gone. Go on, get. Now I'm staring at this coyote again. That again is, it's a 100-pound coyote. It walks over, all the other ones scattered. Same exact thing happens. Okay. I have the voice in my head that tells me to follow. Come with me. And I just, at that point, I was like, I don't know. I just kind of was done, because this is how many times I've seen this thing. So I start walking towards it. And as I walked towards it, that's when I started feeling just the terror, the fear. And this time around, like the other time I was telling you, you know, probably about 15 to 20 feet away, this time I'm probably within 5 feet of it.
5 feet?
And yeah. And I am just overcome with terror. And it's literally sitting there on its haunches, staring at me. And I'm looking right into its eyes. Now, at this point, I'm just waiting for it to do something. And it doesn't do anything. I just hear the voice in my head to follow. And I just started backing away from it. And then it started saying it again and again and again and again. I never had the same where it was kind of that blurry, you know, translucent, you know, but nothing like that. It just stared at me. It just looked like a humongous coyote with red glowing eyes that was just calm as could be. And it just turned around and it walked off and it just disappeared into nothing.
It disappeared before it went out of sight in the woods? You saw it just kind of dissipate?
Just faded away. Yeah, just dissipated.
Chad, that was a ballsy move to walk right up to it like that, huh?
Yeah, you know, we all do stupid stuff.
I didn't say it was stupid. It was very brave of you. I mean, you fought through the terror, basically, is what you said, which is so cool because you, like you said, you're sick of it. You're done. You're like, dude, again with this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just, it just was one of those things where I was just like, hey, it's over.
Yeah.
And it's like I told you earlier, I hunted forever and, you know, I bow hunted, knife hunted, you know, rifle hunted, whatever it is. And so that part of me just kind of took over and I'm like, really honestly, like I'm approaching this thing like I'm going to kill you.
Right.
And then the closer I get to it, the more I'm like, nope, I am definitely not going to kill you. I am scared to death of you. But
you stood your ground. I mean,
I did.
For a certain amount of time, you just slowly started to back away. And then it said, all right, I guess you're not going to follow me. What does a voice sound like?
Deep. Very deep. No type of, no accents. You know, no nothing distinguishable. Very clear cut. Very masculine. Which is probably where it screwed up. Feminine, I probably would have responded to.
That dummy, doesn't it know by now?
Right, exactly. It should figure me out. You know, the best, this is so funny, but the best I've ever really thought and described it as is basically like James Earl Jones.
Wow.
When he was, you know,
deep.
Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Type of thing, you know, so a very deep voice, very commanding voice.
Yeah, who in the hell would follow that?
Right. But when you hear it, it's not like, you know, it's not a timid, like, hey, you want to come here?
Right.
It's like, you know.
Like almost a command?
Follow me.
Yeah.
Almost a command. And, yeah.
But you've really never had the urge, and we haven't heard all of the so-called what we're calling the Wendigo stories yet. We'll get to those, and I want you back on because you've got really cool stories. You've never really had a super strong urge to actually follow that damn thing wherever it wants you to go, right?
Well, I can't say I didn't have an urge, because I did, but there was just this overwhelming side of me that just said, don't do it. You know, like, I don't know if I would say it's the curiosity side
right,
or what, but when I was young, when I was 7, not at all. When I was 19 and I ran into it when the owl was involved, I was actually very curious, and there might have been a part of me that wanted to follow it. But then when I started seeing it doing, you know, what it was doing, kind of that weird, I knew that it wasn't something. I'm not staring at a coyote.
Isn't it interesting though that I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say on the third time, I was actually more angry because I thought that it was trying to get my dog. Yeah. So I wanted to fight it. And then when the testosterone died down, then I was like, I don't actually want to fight you. I'm really scared of you.
Well, not even the other coyotes, which there was a pack of them, wanted to hang around for whatever the hell that thing was.
They were gone. Yeah, the moment it came up, they went away. And like I said, my dog took off, and, he was not a tiny dog. So,
I mean, this thing
was definitely scared.
Obviously has other abilities, right? The ability of, for lack of a better term, telepathy. It can appear and disappear. It's got glowing red eyes. It's probably likely not really a coyote, obviously, is what we're gathering here. However, it cannot override your primeval instinct that is built into us, since the dawn of man, this instinct of, no, you're screwed up. This is terrifying. I have to go.
Right. Every single time that whole, fight or flight kicked in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, every time.
I mean, once we lose that enough, we're really screwed. But for now, at least you're not going to follow the damn thing into the woods. So at least there's that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, too many Jack and Cokes, it might happen, but that has not occurred.
Right. The timing so far is pretty good.
That's what I'm saying. He's caught me on good nights. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I'm going to say this again. What in the hell would happen? Really, honestly, truly. I mean, would it be tantamount to that house in Vermont? Would you finally go through the gelatinous mass and be on this other side and have all the answers to life? Or would you end up more like, Dwight in House of a Thousand Corpses? I mean, I don't, like, what's going to happen to you?
I don't know. I mean, that's the big question, right?
Thank God you didn't go with them any of the times. What in the world? Look, guys, there's a reason that I wanted Chad to stick on. There's a vein for this episode, obviously, and I didn't see it until we got into it, but I wanted him to stick with these because they're very specific. It's very subject specific, if I can say that word behind the other one. If you have heard of anything like this, if you have experienced anything like this, get a hold of me. I mean, I would love to hear it. Chad would love to hear it. Beyond the invisible wall thing, blew my mind. Now we've got this coyote stuff. So, goodness me. Yeah, you're kind of a little bit of a magnet, aren't you?
I seem to be a magnet. I wish I could see Bigfoot, but he has stayed away.
That hairy bastard. I know. He does it to me too.
Right? Exactly. I just want to see one UFO, one big. I
know. Now, I hear it all the time. Oh, you're in Vegas. Don't you see UFOs all the time? Nope. I've been able to identify every single thing I've seen in the sky. So no. Don't put me in that cliche. I have about as many paranormal experiences as a rock. So there you go.
Exactly.
I mean, okay, so you said it was not that recent, but is it like, 5 years ago, or was that 2 years ago? When was that last experience with the coyote?
That would have been roughly about 8 to 9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. It would have been 8 to 9 years ago.
Do you think about that often? I mean, to where you're kind of looking around like, I wonder when I'm going to see that bastard again.
Always. Yeah, I always wonder about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't exactly have a Rottweiler or a Pit Bull. I have a Boston Terrier. But she's the greatest dog ever, first of all, let me say. But, she'll go crazy on the back porch. And we kind of live, not in the country of Texas, but,
enough that makes you wonder, right? Yeah. So every time she goes nuts, you're kind of like, oh boy, is this going to happen again?
Well, and it'll be one of those things where my kids are like, oh, Dad, it might be a coyote. And, my thing is I actually bolt through the back door.
Right. Right.
I've kind of hit that age where I want to see it again. I want to experience it. I'm at the point where now it's like I want to ask questions and see if it answers,
Yeah, you know what? That was something that I meant to ask you. Have you ever thought of, trying to talk back to it? Even in your own mind, have you ever tried to talk back to it like, no, I'm not going with you, or, well, what do you want? Or have you ever maybe thought back and gone, well, I asked it a question and it didn't answer?
I know, right? No, I never did. It never occurred to me. I mean, now it does. But again, I mean, I was in, mid-20s, or late 20s, I guess. I just, didn't really know what to think of it. It was a curiosity. But now, seeing as it hasn't happened in a long time, now I sit here and go, I want it to happen again.
Yeah.
I would love for it to happen again because I want to ask questions. I want to see if it answers. I want to ask if it's an ancestor, of some type,
Yeah.
I want to figure out if it's an evil thing or if it's a good thing, For all I know, he could be trying to show me the secrets of the universe, but I'm sitting here going,
you keep screwing it up, Chad.
I'm telling you, I might know how to end world hunger, but I keep screwing up.
No, all you have to do is think of A House of 1,000 Corpses and rest in peace, Sid Haig. He just passed away, which was, he was looking so bad.
Right.
That's so sad. But yeah, I get where you want the answers, but sometimes you gotta go, well, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, wait. Some really bad stuff could happen. So
some real bad stuff. Which, by the way, he came out with a sequel to House of 1,000 Corpses.
I know. And then they've got the 3 from Hell that just came out as well. And thankfully Sid was around for that. I always wanted to meet him, Sid Haig. I always loved his character, Captain Spaulding, in all of those films. I just watched House of 1,000 Corpses the day before he died. Sometimes I'm just in the mood for something really damn dark, and I put it on, and I'll sit and, I'll make notes or, kind of be reading a book or something at the same time, but I was in the mood for it, and then the next day he passed on, so that's sad.
It was very sad. But I know what you mean. Sometimes you just gotta watch it.
Yeah, there's just a pull to something sometimes. And now it's in my DVR, so I'm like, well, I might have the pull again next week, just put it on while you're cleaning the house or something. I'd rather put that on than a lot of other maybe quote-unquote normal movies that people are like, you put that on to clean? You're like, yeah, I don't know, I like it.
Hey, if I had $1 for every time I put on a Texas Chainsaw Massacre or one of the Halloweens, I'm just saying.
And Matthew McConaughey was on with Howard Stern a while back, and he said he was just so lucky to get into some of these roles that he got into. He's like, I don't even know how I made it into those, but it worked out. You're like, dude, he got lucky, man. And he said he was. He wasn't, they were the lucky ones. But yeah, he's like, dude, it was so fun to do, and we were lucky to have the opportunity. So.
Well, he's a cool dude. When you're anywhere around Austin, you may run into him. So
he sounds like the nicest guy. Did you know that his line, the most famous line for the movie, the all right, that was not written. He did that to help get him into character. Blew my mind when I heard him tell that on Howard Stern. That was not something written down for him, and now it's something that people still say to this day. Half the time, I don't even think these damn kids know where it comes from, but they say it.
No, they just know. They just know that they have the all right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But they don't know what it's from. No, it's a classic. I love it. No, it's a great one. Great guy. He's always all over the place out here. So
I hear he's super nice, very down to earth, which is not always, these big time Hollywood stars are not always like that. So I like to hear it.
So the best thing that I ever had was when I was out in Lukenbach, Texas. Okay, you've heard of the song, right? Lukenbach. Yeah. And we were out there, and my wife says, that looks like Matthew McConaughey playing with a raccoon. I turn around and I go, well, that's because that's Matthew McConaughey playing with a raccoon.
Yeah.
And Willie Nelson was there, started playing out of nowhere. It's a lot of fun. Good guy.
He gets down, dude. Even with bongos in the buff, which, God bless him. No bummer there.
Nope.
The cool thing is we're going to get some responses from the stories you've already told, and maybe we'll have some things discussed with, the things that people bring up to me, and I will pass them along to you.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always fun to actually spread those around, and you know, especially the people that understand and have more of an enlightened mind.
Thanks, Chad. You guys have a good night out there.
All right, you too, Shannon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. But nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, "Now get up and walk across the room." And he comes back and he says, "Where are your footprints?" They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.